All right, so this is lesson 3 for day 1. We're going to start off talking about equations of lines here. The first type, which you've seen both of these before, is slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b form, where we plug the slope in for m and the y-intercept in for the b. Point-slope form is when we're given a point and a slope, and we plug in the slope in for m, we plug the x1 in for the x1 spot, and then we plug the y1 into the y1 spot. Notice there's still an x and a y in here, so we only replace the x1 and the y1 in point slope form. So let's go ahead and practice. The first one we're going to put into slope-intercept form. So that is a slope and an intercept, y equals mx plus b. So that means that our slope here, that's our m. The y-intercept, that's our b, so it's going to look like this, 6x minus 3. Now when we graph this, we want the y-intercept to be at -3, so we go to the y-intercept, put a dot at -3. Slope is 6, which we know is 6 over 1 for a rise over a run. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 1. And then we can go ahead and draw our line, and then arrows on each end because lines do go on forever in both directions. Okay, so if you want to try this next one on your own, go ahead and pause and try that, and then check when you're ready. So -1 for the slope should be a -x, or you can put the 1 if you want. We normally don't put that 1. It's just assumed that it's there. Starting at 4 for the y-intercept, going down 1, right 1. If it's -1 over 1 for the slope, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. And then drawing your line through those points. And then arrows on each end. So double check that you had that graphed. All right, next we're going to take a look at point slope form. Remember, point slope is the y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. So we're going to go ahead and plug in this point. This is my x1, this is my y1, and this is my m. So it's going to look like this. Y minus 8 equals, then my slope, -3/5, parenthesis x minus, and then my x. Notice that we have a minus and negative here. We have the minus that's a part of the equation, and we have the negative that's a part of this number 10. So we need to change that double negative to a plus. All right, so now we are going to put this on the graph. Well, we can plot this point, and then we can use our slope to go from this point to our next point. So -10, 8 would be right here. And we're going to go down 3 and right 5. So down 3 and right 5. 1, 2, 3, and right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to draw our line. And go ahead and stick an arrow on this side too. There we go. All right, so try that next one on your own. Write it in point slope form, and then check your answer when you're ready. All right, so there's your equation, and then you should have plotted your point at 6, -3, and gone up 1, right 3, and then drawn your line. And then arrows on each end. So the reason that we use point slope form sometimes is because it's not always that we're given an intercept. We're sometimes given a point and we know the slope, so we can use point slope form. We can even change it into slope intercept form, which we're going to take a look at in day 2's lesson. Okay, so let's go ahead lastly and take a look at what if we're given 2 points. How do we find our equation? Well, first we need to find the slope, and we know that slope, we can use the slope formula, which I'll write off to the side here. Some of you like to subtract your y's in the other order, which is totally fine. So taking the first minus the second, as long as you go first minus second in both ways, you're totally fine with that. So if we're finding the slope, we know this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and then we can go ahead and plug it into our formula for slope, which we already have done from lesson 3.3. And then -9 over -6 reduces to 3/2. So our slope is 3/2. That's what we're going to use for our m. And then we want to plug in just one of the points. I like to use any point that has a 0. I like to use that one. So let's go ahead and use this for my x1 and this for my y1, because it just tends to make things a little bit easier sometimes. Double negatives need to change. And now if we're going to try and get this into slope intercept form, that means we need to go ahead and do some distributing here and then get y alone, which y is actually already alone because that's a 0. So we just need to distribute. So 3/2 times x is 3/2 x. 3/2 times 2, well, when we take a fraction times a whole number, we just basically multiply across. Pretend, you can put the 1 underneath here if you want, and then multiply across. Or you can basically just take the numerator times that whole number and then divide it by the denominator. It's the same thing. So 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. 6 over 2, that's 3. So plus 3. And we're done. Okay, so if you want to try this next one on your own, go ahead and do that. Pause and then push play and check when you're ready. All right, double check your answer.